Sekejap nak tanya, betul ke saya bilik ni? Ke atau saya just bilik lain?
Betul, Doktor.
Betul, okey.
Betul, Doktor kat bilik ni.
Okey, saya...
Welcome to all of the participants and also juries. We will now wait for Dr. Akmal Hisham to enter this debate room. Thank you. Please wait. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good evening to the honorable lecturers, adjudicators, debaters from the government and opposition side, and not to forget the audiences. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 6th annual Interbatch Debate Championship organized by the Diplomatic ESCO of the Medical Student Association, MESA. On behalf of the organizing committee, we are pleased to welcome you. Before we start our debate championship today, please kindly mute your speaker throughout the debate unless you are giving your speech or point of information, POI. Only the moderator and participating teams are allowed to turn on their camera throughout the debate. The juries are welcomed to turn on their cameras after the debate has finished to comment on the debate by the participating teams. Welcome to the third preliminary round of Interbatch Debate Championship. I am Nur Aina Nakia Saifulizam, the chairperson, and Aina Nasuha binti M. Ramli, the timekeeper for today. We are very delighted to announce our motion for today, which is this House believes that medical programs in public universities are better than those in private institutions. I would like to introduce the debaters for today. On my right side, taking the role as the government team is the team from Year 1 Uranus with Mr. Fatur Rahman Haziq bin Tahir as the first speaker, Mr. Muhammad Amir Haziq bin Johari as the second speaker, Mr. Muhammad Adib Lukman bin Khairul Azman as the third speaker, and Mr. Amir Ashraf Azrai bin Saiful Amri as the reserved speaker. On my left side, taking the role as the opposition team, is the team from Year 2 Mars, with Miss Shazwina Adrina binti Muhammad Hisham Sullah as the first speaker, Mr. Muhammad Iqbal Hakimi bin Lukman as the second speaker, Miss Aisha binti Abdul Halim as the third speaker, and Miss Nur Aina Sabrina binti Abdul Nasir as the reserved speaker. There are three adjudicators who will adjudicate this competition. The first jury is Associate Professor Dr. Sharaniza Abdul Rahim. The second jury is Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Johari Ibrahim. The third jury is Dr. Akmal Hisham Arshad. Now, I would like to state the rules and regulations for today's debate. The time allocated for the first speaker of the government team is 7 minutes. The timekeeper will ring the bell once. At the first minute, which signals that points of information POI are allowed to be given from the opposing team. The bell will be ringing again at the 6th minute to signal the end of chances for POI to be given. The timekeeper will ring the bell twice at the end of 7 minutes, indicating that the time is up for the speaker and the speaker should do his or her closing speech immediately. Any POI given before the first or after the 6th minute should be ignored. Please do keep in mind that an extra 1 minute is given for the speaker if the speaker has a poor internet connection during the speech, which the timekeeper will take into account the extra time. For the rest of the speakers, the time allocated for them to deliver their speech is 6 minutes. The bell will be ringing once. Okay. At the first minute. Thank you, timekeeper. At the first and the 5th minute to signal the duration for POI can only be delivered. Any POI given before the first or after the 5th minute should be ignored. The timekeeper will ring the bell twice at the end of the 6 minutes to indicate the end of the time for the speakers to deliver their speech. and they should do the closing speech immediately. The speakers will be penalized if the time taken exceeds the allocated time. Again, an extra 1 minute is given for the speaker if the speaker has a poor internet connection during the speech, which the timekeeper will take into account the extra time. Next, I will briefly declare the roles of the debaters. The first speakers of the government and opposition team need to define the motion and state their stand, as well as introducing an idea or more to support or against the motion. The first speaker from the opposition also needs to rebut the idea given by the first speaker of the government team. The second speakers from the government and opposition team need to convey two or more ideas to support or oppose today's motion. In addition, the second speaker of the government team needs to rebut the idea given by the first speaker of the opposition, while the second speaker of the opposition team needs to rebut the ideas given by the second speaker of the government team. The third speakers need not to introduce new ideas and need to rebut all the ideas given by the first, second, and third speakers of the other theme. For the reply speech, the time allocated to prepare is 2 minutes, whereas to present the reply speech is 3 minutes. The first or second speaker of the opposition team should present his or her reply speech first, followed by the first or second speaker from the government team. The speakers cannot introduce new ideas and will need to summarize their arguments and reaffirm their stand regarding today's motion. The third speakers are not allowed to present the reply speech. The timekeeper will ring the bell once, at the second minute as a last minute warning, and will ring the bell twice to signal the end of the debate. Are the participants clear of the rules and regulation? Okay. All right. Okay, if everyone is clear, I will start. As the rules and regulation are fully understood, I would like to call upon the first speaker of the government team, Mr. Fatur Rahman Haziq bin Tahir, to deliver his speech.
Assalamualaikum and good evening to Mrs. Chairman, judges, and members of the floor. So, today's topic of our debate is this House believes that medical programs in public universities are better than those in private institutions. So, before that, we will define the topic as we're going through this debate. So, first, what is medical programs? Medical program is degree courses that prepare students with planned learning activities to become a doctor as a career. Second one is the public universities. These are universities that established under the government, while private institutions are universities established by non-government bodies, for example, NGOs. So today, we will prove to you that public universities overall offer better medical programs than private institutions. Before that, me, as the first speaker, will be talking about the tuition fees and consistency, while our second speaker will talk about sufficiency, excessiveness, and environment. And our third speaker will rebut and sum up our team case. And without further ado, I will discuss about the tuition fees. As we know, public universities tuition fees are lower than and then private institutions. As we know, the highest tuition fee for public universities is 55,000 ringgit, and for private institution is as low as 300 to 400,000 ringgit per semester, for all semester, which is 10 semester all. On average, public tuition fees is 50K for the program, and surprisingly, government have subsidiary for each student, which will reduce this fees up to 40,000 K, and the students only need to pay for 10 semester total 10K, 10,000 ringgits. And this show that public universities have helped the students to further their education in medicines is in medicines. And why you going to pay 400,000 ringgit on private institution? And what and that
Yeah,
sorry, no, and that and government and public university can assure you the same quality as private institution. For we need to think that when you're going to private institution with 400K in your hand, that you want, and it will assure you you are going to get a good private institution. But here's the thing, it is simple. when when it offers you the same quality or better quality in the public universities, why you need to waste 400,000 ringgit just to go to private institution? Now, I'm I'm going to my second point, which is consistency. The tuition fees between private institution differ greatly. How much they differ? That at least 400,000 ringgit between two private institution. Which, okay, I'm asking. This implies that the quality of medical programs they offer also differs. And then when you have, okay, this, I want to give you an analogy, which it's simple. It's between 500K and 400K private institution tuition fees, which will give you a better quality in your mind. That must be the 500,000 ringgit tuition fees, which you will think the facilities, the the accommodation, that almost complete. But compared to public universities, with only you need to pay 15,000 K as tuition fees, you can expect that almost all public universities have the same accommodation, the same facilities as they are promoted by these private institutions. That we can expect the same quality or even better quality than private institution that only may come after your money. For example, the proof is public uni, just like UITM, has hospital UITM and clinical simulation center that can help you to to enhance, to boost your knowledge in medicines, or that may not or may have that private institution have this kind of facility, but you still pay the big amount of money for what? Wasting it and give them benefits. So I want the opposition team to think that why we need to give this private institution more money than public university that can offer the same or even better educational quality to our students. And ladies and gentlemen, to conclude my speech, this matters showing that public universities are better than private institutions in terms of financial management of students, and also give the better image for public universities as a place to pursue medical studies. And I want you to support us the whole for this whole session. Thank you.
Thank you to the first speaker of the government team. Now I would like to call upon the first speaker of the opposition team to deliver her speech.
And am I clear?
Yes.
All right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Thank you, Madam Speaker. A very good evening. I would like to wish to the honorable educators, precise timekeepers, fellow members of the government, members of the opposition, and members of the floor. The topic for our debate is that this House believes that medical programs in public universities are better than those in private institutions. We, as the opposition team, agree with the definition given by the Prime Minister of government side. However, we truly disagree with this motion tonight. Today, I, Shazuna, as the first speaker, I will be talking to you about why medical program in private universities is better than public universities. First, in terms of better infrastructures, and second, more class ability and more guidance towards the students. Our second speaker, Iqbal Hakimi, will rebut the points given by the first and second speakers of the government team, and he will go on to present 2 additional new points that will further support the opposition stand. Finally, Aisha, the third speaker of the opposition side, has the task as the whip of the opposition to rebut all the points given and put forward by the government side. Without further ado, let me start with rebuttal to the second point given by the Prime Minister of the government side. You are talking about the cost and for private institution, public institution is much more affordable for the students. Yes, there might be benefits in terms of that aspect, but we will tell you from our point that our side has money to you with scholarships, and students also get loans. Obviously, it cannot be as low as public universities, but given the added benefit under our side, we tell you that side of opposition stands better. Now, I'll start the main point. Why do we disagree with this motion tonight? From our side, we believe that private universities provide better infrastructure. I'm sure that we're all aware that the facilities in public universities are not well maintained, such as students' accommodation, especially the Wi-Fi or internet connection. We shouldn't turn in blind eye towards this kind of issue. We believe that medical program is better in private university because teaching and learning equipments are always kept up to date and more in quantity. Therefore, each medical student are able to have better. This is according to the New School article. The hands-on activity not only provide the visual learning and auditory learning styles to students, but also the kinesthetic learning, where it mingles both element of visual and auditory learning, and this will absolutely be implemented during our practical session. As we all know, hands-on learning is very important as a medical student. Why is it? Hands-on learning provides students with the opportunity to safely make mistakes and learn organically through trial and error. Rather than experimenting when a job is on the line, they can experiment with new ideas and satisfy curiosity at their own natural pace. This allows them to practice their critical thinking skills and utilize the knowledge they have accumulated during their medical program. Other than that, you might also wonder what benefits that student will get under medical program of private universities. There are more conducive places. What do I mean? Sorry, sir, too early. What do I mean by conducive places? These places have a Wi-Fi connection and larger spaces for students' discussion. The study room in public universities is limited, and in terms of quantity and poor facilities such as the air conditioner, you can't deny the fact that, right? Then, compared to private universities, the facilities are well maintained and does not require a long period to be fixed, just like the public universities. Hence, we as the opposition team still wonder why the government agreed with this motion tonight, despite all the benefit I have stated just now. Moving on to my second point, private university has a better medical program as it provides more guidance towards students and more class availability. As we all know, lecturers to the student ratio is high in private universities compared to public universities. Public universities are often filled to capacity and the number of students far outnumbering the educators. As a medical students, we need an affirmation and special attention to thrive in throughout medical school, not just to survive. Thus, private institutions offer smaller class sizes, more individual attention, and better understanding will be achieved for one student. For example, in real life situation, you as a medical student, when you feel the support of your educators, lecturers, doctor, you should feel more determined to pursue this data and give an elaboration of my points under the side of opposition, which are, first, private universities provide better infrastructures, and second, it provide more guidance to towards students and more class ability for medical program compared to public university. That's why we as opposition reject the motion for today's debate that this house believe that medical programs in public universities are better than those in private institutions. With that, I raise my case. Thank you.
Thank you to the first speaker of the opposition team. Now I would like to call upon the second speaker of the government team to deliver his speech.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum, everyone. Before I start, a quote from Abraham Flexner. Medical education is not just a program for building medical students and knowledge and skills in its recipient. It is also an experience which creates attitudes and expectations. And with that, hello. My name is Muhammad Hazib bin Johari, and I am the second speaker from the government team. And today, I and all of my teammates firmly wants to agree with our motion, which is public universities is way better than private universities. So, as we mentioned by our first speaker, the government's first speaker, our government first speaker focuses more on the tuition fees, the high cost of tuition fees in private universities, and we all agree, and I think everyone's watching agree that private universities have such an excessive amount of tuition fees compared to the facilities that they've provided to the students. The excessiveness of these fees that have been mentioned by our first speaker, ranging from 250K to 500K, is truly excessive compared to what has been set by the public universities. So we also believe that everything that is provided in the public universities, all the facilities, even though stated by the second speaker of the opposition team, we believe that even though you stated that the private institutions provided enough facilities and they are well maintained, we believe even so, public universities have provided every single facilities that is necessary for public students to prepare themselves, no matter theory wise and clinical wise, to ensure that they become great doctors in the future. And even it's kind of funny to note that even though the tuition fees, we concluded that the tuition fees in private universities is really only one provided a teaching school for their students, and this is honestly crazy to us, the government side, because of the excessiveness of the fees that have to be paid by the medical students. But even so, their institutions, private institutions, don't try their best to give their best to their students to ensure that their students are well prepared clinically. Other than that, we also want to emphasize about the conservative, the environment of studying. So we believe that if all of the students believe that public schools, their environment are more conservative compared to private schools. And what I mean by this is that conservativeness is when you are not exposed to too many distractions while studying. And we need to understand that people that go to public school, they are way more conservative. And we think that being in a conservative environment is way better for our medical students, because this ensures that we are not distracted by entertainments that might be provided, and if you were to go to private medical school. Sorry. That is also the reason why I brought up the point about the hospitals not being prepared in private medical schools, because our first speaker of the opposition team really really excitedly explains that the infrastructures in the private schools, they are well maintained, and I understand that. I understand that it's well maintained, but it does not correlate with the fact that even so, public universities will always be seen as more prestigious compared to private universities. I, as the second speaker of the government side, also think that the money that we can save, the money that medical students can save, if we were to go to public medical schools, can be spent elsewhere. You can use it for yourself. You can use it for your family. You can use it to prepare yourself in other ways. Maybe your own equipment for your clinical years. So we think that public medical school is way better than private medical school. And in conclusion, I hereby want to firmly again repeat that the point that was given by our first speaker, the tuition fees is outrageously expensive, and also my point is the infrastructures that is prepared by public school, it is sufficient. And it is excessive to spend that much money on your fees in private school. And also the environment in public school is way better to ensure that we as medical students are well prepared and can focus on our studies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to the second speaker of the government team. Now I would like to call upon the second speaker of the opposition team to deliver his speech.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the hall, without wasting any time, let's go immediately towards the rebuttals for the first and second speaker on this side government. So firstly, for Prime Minister, he mentioned of utmost importance regarding the tuition fees, and he compared regarding the public universities with also the private universities. He mentioned about how public universities are lower because and that helps the students. And we tell you that firstly, my first speaker has already told you regarding how private universities have already given different leeways for you to be able to go into a private university, for example, such as giving scholarships and also students get loan. We tell you that this is actually already fair enough because it is very impossible and it's very inevitable that public universities are actually going to have lower tuition fees compared to private universities. And we also tell you that this is okay because under our side opposition fares better because there is more benefits when you are able, even if you have a little bit of higher quality. And this also goes towards my second rebuttal, where you mention about where side government mentions about how they only compare first in terms of the facilities. And we tell you, first of all, my first speaker has already said that we hardly disagree that the facilities for public universities and private universities are of the similar quality. We tell you that private universities will have better quality and we have better in terms of like management and all of that, right? But other than that, we also tell you that the high fees not only supplies you with good facilities. This is what side government is currently under, right? Because this is only saying that okay, you compare the facilities. Public universities have lower price, private universities higher price, both same facilities. But we, under side opposition, tell you that other than facilities, there are other different things that private universities are able to get, which is much more better and compared to the public universities. And this is going to be, I'm going to talk about this much more further in my second and third point under side opposition. Going to the Deputy Prime Minister, firstly, he told about how it's an excessive amount when it comes to like private universities fees. We tell you that this isn't excessive because of the same reasoning. We also tell you that if you actually look towards like the public universities, they actually have if you actually do your research, you actually see that public universities, they also have high fees. The only reason why they initially have high fees, but the only way why they actually get lower fees is because the government has subsidies. And this is essentially why the public universities exist, right? And I'm going to be talking about that much more further in my points. And he also talked about the environment where it's actually more conservative, and this is way better. We hardly disagree with this because we think this is abnormal, because essentially you are saying that it's better if students are actually more spoon-fed compared to private universities. And you actually don't give enough concrete evidence to show us why the conservative environment is much more better compared to private universities. Right? And under our side, we think that this is actually a very abnormal. And they also told you about how the public schools is much more prestigious compared to private schools, even with the high fee, and, even with the low fee and all of that. And we ask you to look at like the world ranking of the private universities, not just in medical schools, but also in other different places. And you can see that most of the ones that are at the top are all private universities. Harvard is private university. Monash is private university. Even in Malaysia, Manipal is a private university. And thus, you can see that that statement is actually invalid. So without wasting my time, let's go to my first argument under the keyword of financial. So 3 layers under my argument. Firstly is regarding the removal of the need to subsidize. So as mentioned before, how public universities has lower costs because the government actually subsidizes these students. And that's actually a good thing. We agree to the fact that that's a good thing to the students, but not in good it's not good in terms of the finance of the government, because there's a lot of output towards this. So how is private university is better? Because the government does not need to actually subsidize this, and there is less output from the government, and we're still producing good doctors. And this shows the upside of private universities when you compare it to public universities. Secondly, of argument regarding the development of the area surrounding the private university. How does this actually occur? Because when private universities are actually promoted, then the area also needs to be developed, because you have to cater towards the students and the lecturers and all of the people that are residents at that area of the private university. And this effect, the development of the area in terms of like the buildings, the transportations, the attractions, for example, for you to be able to do a good environment in that area after this. This work is not done by the government because the private sector actually manages this. Thus, it is actually beneficial under our work. And this isn't something new. We tell you that this is already in Malaysia's development plan. For example, in 2015, Malaysia's EduCity Iskandar opened as a full campus with several international universities, including Newcastle University Medicine Malaysia. And this involvement has Malaysia's socio-economic progress and has attracted many international students. Which brings me to my final layer of argument regarding the benefit of increasing international students, where private universities actually attract international students more, so they are able to be residing here, and there is an increased exchange of money which helps financially due to exchange rate. So it's better for us in terms of financial. Second, last argument is regarding better networking. First, regarding more international students that I mentioned just now, therefore you're going to have more interactions, you're going to broaden your perspective, and you're going to foster new perspectives. And you're also going to be beneficial to our students because you have an increment in the knowledge and skills that can be learned. Secondly, is regarding the more renowned lecturers and professors to teach. So this invites new skills, it widens the knowledge and intelligence, and it provides better communications from our students in order to help become a better doctor. Thirdly, is regarding more chances for extracurricular programs internationally, right? So this makes it much more interesting in terms of how you learn. So you're going to be able to be a better doctor. It helps. All the benefits I mentioned previously are also reaped. So it opens the opportunity to improve our country's cost. But under side of government, this cannot happen because firstly, regarding the cost, the government has to be rational in terms of the cost and private university has more leeway in this area. And secondly, regarding the MOU, which is the Memorandum of Understanding, where essentially what MOU is an agreement to form a partnership and also its encapsulation. So for public universities MOU, there's less and it's also limited in terms of what it can do. But under our side, we are much more holistic and we are able to cater towards these students. So ladies and gentlemen, over the past few minutes, I've given you my two arguments regarding financial aspects and also how it actually improves and makes a better networking in terms of our medical students. With that, I rest my case. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to the second speaker of the opposition team. Now, would you like to call upon the third speaker of the government team to deliver his speech?
Wait, let me just time myself. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it has become abundantly clear that the said opposition is woefully ignorant of people who can't spend as much for these private institutions and who can't qualify enough for these scholarships and loans that they have said. Now, I would like to start my speech by addressing their rebuttals and rebutting them as well. Now, they have rebutted our argument on tuition fees by saying, oh, private institutions also offer scholarships and loans. I ask you, does everyone get these scholarships and loans? Because I don't think everyone does. Private institutions are not going to just give scholarships to just about everyone. They're gonna look at their qualifications of students before giving them out. And us inside government are saying that government is more lenient by giving these subsidies to students who don't necessarily have the same qualifications, because side opposition assumes that every student out there can qualify to get these scholarships and loans from private institutions. We disagree. We disagree, and that not every student can hope to achieve these scholarships and loans, and are better off going for the subsidies provided by the government. Now, they have gone on to say that private institutions have greater quality. We don't disagree to this, but we believe, as my second speaker has said, that it is sufficient, that public universities are sufficient. Public universities have already proven themselves to produce competent doctors in the workforce. So anything more you spend, anything more you give, is just bells and whistles. All of these programs, all of these help sessions that the opposition has proposed, or rather does exist in private institutions, are just additions. They're not needed to produce a great doctor. Now they have argued on how private institutions can take the burden off of government. The thing is, we believe, like, that is true, but then again, that is not our concern, because the concern is, we are not concerned about the government. What we are concerned about are these students who can't afford these private institutions, because it is good and all. It is good and all that these private institutions can take the burden off of government, but are there really enough students that can afford these private institutions who also can achieve the scholarships and loans that the opposition has brought up? So we don't need concern ourselves for the government. We need concern ourselves for students. Now, they have also said that private universities help in urban development. We argue that this also applies to public universities. Take, for example, from where I come from, Dengkil. Dengkil, UiTM Dengkil, right?
Okay, sir.
Yes.
Sir, you mentioned about how some people aren't able to be qualified in order for you to get these loans and all of that. So in what way do you mean by qualifications? Because in my opinion, that if you're not qualified in order to get this scholarship, that means that you're not good enough to become a good doctor.
That is a very good point. But we believe that that's a very good point. So the opposition is saying that certain students are not if they're not qualified enough to get these scholarships, they're not qualified to be doctors. We wholeheartedly disagree, because scholarships and loans are specifically made for the gifted students. Like there's a reason, because if like we like don't you like all of us here agree that, at least I agree to myself, that even though I didn't get a scholarship, I still deserve to be a good doctor. I still deserve the education that is needed to become a good doctor. Because getting a scholarship, not getting a scholarship does not mean that I can't become a good doctor. I believe that even without a scholarship, people can still become good doctors. But they can't get that with the high tuition fees that private institutions need. Now, they've also said that they have brought up international students and networking. Now, again, I ask you, why is this necessary? Do medical students really need this? Is what I ask you, because even without it, I'm very confident they can still become good doctors. Now, let me summarize with the little time I have left for our case. What the government is trying to say is that public universities offer affordable tuition, are consistent with their medical programs, and also provide sufficient education for these students to become good doctors. Now, if you want a world where students may not be able to afford their private institutions and who may not be able to achieve these scholarships and loans that the opposition has stated, please go for side opposition. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to the third speaker of the government team. Now I would like to call upon the third speaker of the opposition team to deliver her speech.
Can everyone hear me clearly?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yes. All right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. Thank you to Ms. Speaker. A very good evening I would like to wish to the honorable adjudicators, precise timekeepers, fellow members of the opposition team, the government team, and members of the floor. We from the opposition team strongly believe that in terms of medical programs, private institutions provide a vastly superior benefit. I am Aisha binti Abdul Halim. As the third speaker of the opposition team, I will start with rebutting the government side of today's motion. First of all, you had an attempt to persuade the floor on tuition fees, saying that it is very expensive. First of all, private universities also give scholarships under their own foundation, and student loans is obviously very much available. So do you know why government universities is very cheap? This is because that they are subsidized. The first speaker had mentioned that the private universities need 500K in order to graduate. However, it is actually the same amount, regardless of which university that you come from. But you see it as cheaper because government is paying for them. Therefore, with private sectors, they're actually helping them as they pay on their own. This is why private sectors are actually catering for higher socioeconomic status students so that they don't take the underprivileged students who deserve to have a place in the government sector. Secondly, the second speaker mentioned that the environment is conservative in public universities, that offer medical programs. So the second speaker does not even define what conservative is. And he also mentioned that being in public universities, they are more likely to be distracted from the outside world. Clearly, you are not living in the year 2022 because there are more exposures in order to be medical students need more exposure in order for them to be more holistic and perform better, especially as healthcare workers who deal with much more people. And lastly, from the second speaker, you also mentioned that public medical schools are more prestigious. However, you fail to see that, you forget to see that Harvard is the most prestigious school, but it is also still a private institution. From the third speaker, you mentioned that not everyone can get a scholarship. That is actually why medical students is very limited. We want to get full quality doctors. That's why only people who are qualified will get scholarships. And there are much more loans that people can take. And as I've mentioned before, that subsidies is just a financial burden for the government. That is why private is helping to alleviate this burden. Furthermore, there is also currency flow. So it without food. Never mind. So, for my summary for today's debate, my Prime Minister had mentioned that private institutions offers much better infrastructure as they keep teaching and learning equipment fully well maintained and enough to cater for each and every medical student. As she had mentioned that hands-on experience is very much significant. I'm pretty sure everyone will agree with me when I say that you work better, you feel better, you learn better when things are at their best condition. For example, strong internet connection. As from us here, we have quite bad internet connection, and that's what we need. And especially as medical students, we need resources and at a very fast pace to keep up with our studies. Furthermore, my first speaker also touched on how private institutions provide more individual attention to students, allowing each student to be more well-versed, clear, and focused on what they need to cover, thus making them more productive and determined to learn and become a better healthcare worker in the near future. Moving on to the firm points my second speaker had raised on how private institutions provide the financial burden, provides an alleviation to the financial burden for governments. For financially able students, they choose to opt for private medical schools. In addition, there's also an abundance of foundation that provides the financial aid, as I've mentioned before again and again. Furthermore, private universities helps lessen the burden of government as they have no such need to subsidize medical students, as I've mentioned before, which is a very important point that you need to see. Now government can cater for other sectors as they don't need to spend 500K on each university students for all of the medical students available in the Malaysia. Lastly, he also said that private institutions have larger opportunities in the sense of international networking. Private universities with medical programs tend to have more chances for their students to have more experience, therefore broadening their perspective. Thus results in producing more holistic medical graduates. Holistic is a very important word that you need to see here because we don't want doctors that cannot react in a spontaneous way. This in turn progresses to better performances of healthcare workers in the near future. And even you as medical students, you would want to take these opportunities for you to have more experiences and more view on on an international level. And in conclusion, the government team had failed to show us how public universities is much better, and we from the opposition team had showed you a clear view, which you can see how private institutions offers finer medical programs. And therefore, I rest my case.
Thank you to the third speaker of the opposition team. As the debate is reaching its end, I would like to allocate 2 minutes for the first or second speaker from both teams to prepare their reply speech. first speaker or the second speaker from the opposition team, please present your reply speech.
Can you hear me? Can I? Okay.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, members of the hall, a few problems that we can analyze under side government. Firstly, and the most detrimental of them all is that we believe that side government only focuses too much on one aspect, which is regarding the finance of this whole debate, right? Because they say that some cannot go into these private universities because the private university fee is very high. Side opposition tells you that it isn't actually the responsibility of private schools to provide education for all the students. This isn't what we are actually debating about. We're debating on how either public universities or private universities is better, not just in terms of alleviating the burden of financial burden of the people, which is the only thing that they heavily maintain by side government, but also in various other aspects. Second problem is that they fail to go further on the point of conservatism where the second speaker had mentioned. We think that this isn't actually, all they mention is about how conservative environment is better, and some environment from the private universities which is not conservative is not actually good, and it's actually detrimental to the students of that university. Right? We think that this isn't progressive of side government because firstly, we assume that they think that freedom to adults is actually burdening. And secondly, they think that being caged and spoon-fed is actually good for these same adults. We under side opposition heavily disagree with this notion. Under side opposition, we have shown you a very holistic side of opposition. We tell you that it's not only just good for students, but we also tell you that it is also better in terms of helping the government in terms of the financial aspect, but also in maintaining a good culture and also environment. Members of the hall, this is why the motion reading is actually very important. Side government says that the public universities is actually better because more people can enter public universities. We tell you that private universities is better because it helps not only to the students, which my first speaker has already told you, but also elsewhere, which I have heavily maintained in my speech just now. Therefore, by only the weight of that, we believe that this motion should be heavily denied and the motion should go to side opposition. That's all for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the opposition team. Now, the government team.
Thank you. So I, as the second speaker of the government team, would like to just give a speech on to why truly we believe from the government team that our points is way better and proves that public medical institutions is way better than private institutions. As per mentioned by my first speaker, the tuition fees, again, it is outrageously high compared to the private medical school. And throughout the debate, all of the members of the opposition fail to justify how the excessive increase, the differences between public fees and private fees will be spent to ensure that, to prove that it's better than the public institutions. Also, again, I think the infrastructure that is provided by the government team, it is sufficient enough to ensure that the medical students from the public universities to become good doctors in the future. It is funny when they keep on repeating that, oh, why Harvard is a private medical school. It is prestigious, but you cannot compare Harvard with Malaysia, because if you compare Harvard, which is a prestigious school outside of the country, UM is the oldest. In terms of comparing Harvard and Malaysia, UM, a public medical school, is the oldest, and thus the comparison does not really is not really justified. And also, the differences, like again from the tuition fees perspective, the differences between the minimum amount of is actually not 500K. Is the opposition team actually stated that it is the same for public university and private university is actually the same amount, but public university receives subsidiaries. But actually, it is completely wrong because even without subsidiaries, the amount of money for the government medical schools is way lower at 50K. So again, the excessiveness that will be made if you were to choose private universities, the money can be spent elsewhere, and you keep on focusing on international students. You keep on appealing towards the government. But
Second speaker, please.
I'm sorry. Basically, our point is the tuition fees in public universities is too high compared to the maximum amount of fees in public universities. The infrastructure is sufficient, and the environment in which us students study have to be conservative to ensure that they could be good doctors in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for all the debaters. And now we will give some time for our adjudicators to carefully give marks and discuss who is the winner of today's debate, as well as deciding the best speaker. The jury will judge the debate only based on the points argued by the speakers and not their personal opinion of the motion. The juries will now enter breakout room to have a moment among themselves.
3.5 years. Sorry, we are going to the breakout room now?
Yes, for the doctors only to discuss about the best speaker and also the winning team. Thank you all for your cooperation. Now we would like to ask the juries to comment on the debate that had happened. So we start with Dr. Sharaniza. Can you comment on the debate that had happened?
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. I'm honored to be here. Congratulations to both parties, okay, the government and the opposition. It's very well done. Okay, that's the things that that you can improve more. Okay, on in terms of the point that you have. Okay, especially on the government sides. Okay, all right, and the opposition, good work. Okay, you have many points that you been talking about, but maybe there's more elaboration need to be done. Okay, and anyway, it's a good job from both parties. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much to Dr. Sharaniza. Now, how about Dr. Johari?
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, good evening. I don't want to repeat what Dr. Sharaniza mentioned, so I concur with her. Just additional, I think during the first speaker, Prime Minister, I think the definition, I think you mentioned about the private university is what kuasa patut about NGO. I think that's not quite right. And then what called the opposition leader also agree with that. I think you should, if you know that's wrong, I think that you should what I call tell the truth. Okay, whether that is by the public company, okay, that want to seek for the profit. Okay, not NGO. I think then among all six speakers, I think that's government speaker, government number 3. I think that he did very well. He allowed POI. I think only you allow that, and then okay, you what call you rebut very well the POI by the speaker number 2. I think that's something positive during this debate. Overall, I agree with Dr. Sharaniza's comment just now. Thank you. Back to the chairperson.
Okay, thank you so much to Dr. Johari. Now, how about Dr. Akmal? Can you please comment on the debate that had happened?
Thank you. Okay, wow, it was a bomb. The good things about all the speakers, all speakers managed to give their points within the stipulated time. I don't think any of the speaker exceeds the time given, which is very good. Okay. Other than that, I think Prof. Sharaniza and Dr. Jahari already explained what are the contents that can be improved further. Otherwise, the offensive and the counter offensives are very good. Unfortunately, there are no draws in debating. Okay. Well done, everyone.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much to Dr. Akmal. Now the results are in my hands. So the winner of this debate, the winner of this debate today is the opposition team, which is the Mars group. Well done. Congratulations to the winning team. And now the best speaker chosen by the juries is Muhammad Iqbal Hakimi bin Luqman, the second speaker of the opposition team. So congratulations to both of the teams, actually, to both of the teams. Finally, before we end this round, let's all have a photography session, including the juries and the participants. So please turn on your camera. Has the committee, screenshot the photographs together?
Hello.
Hello, can you hear? Okay.
Okay, so there was a problem with my microphone. Okay, so on my count, everyone, get ready. 3, 2, 1. Okay, one more. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Okay, last one. Ready? 3, 2, 1. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much to everyone. Finally, it's the end of today's round. Thank you all for the amazing debate today, and thank you to the juries who are willing to spend their time this evening. Hope you all have a great evening ahead, and you may leave this MS Teams meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done, everyone.
Well done. Yeah.
Thank you. Congrats, you guys.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Doctor. Thank you. Okay, thank you semua ya. Thank you semua JK.